So hello, thank you for watching. I got my watch party buddies, little Luna Aria, Shinigami's over here. Oh, I moved a fraction of an inch. Oh, yes, I'm still in my pajamas. It's like 3. Leave me alone. So, finished the new Doctor Who episode introducing Jodie Whittaker as the 13th Doctor. I gotta say, pretty darn good. Pretty darn solid. You know, I think solid's pretty much if I had to boil it down to a word, uh, would be the best for her so far. So far, it wasn't. It was. I mean, it's a setup episode. You got to set up the companions. You got to set up kind of getting her where she's going to kind of go with it and everything like that. Um, as such, started off pretty well overall. There's been a bunch of episodes in the last few years that were, I think, Peter Capaldi. Um, his run, I think, was punctuated by the fact that he rose above the writing he was given to be a pretty darn good doctor, despite some of just the more practical problems in terms of script and story and things like that. I mean, this wasn't a world beater of a story. They gave her some pretty darn good lines, trying to set up, some interesting people to a certain extent. A couple of them kind of brought together by a certain amount of loss because, of course, we can't have anything nice in Doctor Who without someone cool dying anymore. Didn't used to be that way. Um, but yeah, a little spoilery thing there, I guess. Uh, but yeah, I mean, you got the idea of, and she even has a line or a mini speech after everything kind of sorts out after the regeneration, kind of knowing who she is, and they give that uh, a little homage sort of line. It was like, you can still be true to kind of who you are or the core of the thing and still have to and you still have change. You're going to have change anyway, but you can still stay true to that while adding something new, adding your own personality, adding your own thing to it. And I think that that's really sort of a sort of fundamental thing of Doctor Who anyway, especially in terms of adding in the regenerations of it. And they kind of had the what I've heard the actors who've played the Doctor, kind of a couple of them said one or the other is just be yourself with it, and kind of let it'll take care of itself, sort of thing. So they did a really good job with keeping, again, the sort of core of who the Doctor is in place, and you can see where she's going to kind of put a little bit of her own spin on it as well. My feeling was when I initially saw her, they initially showed the pictures of her in her new costume outfit or whatever. I got a real Fifth Doctor vibe of it, and I kind of feel that way after watching this too. Only the Fifth Doctor, if if Peter Davison wasn't trying to kind of mimic the Second Doctor. I heard this something where he said where, Patrick Troughton, he liked Patrick Troughton, and if you go back and watch a lot of the Fifth Doctor stuff, he kind of gets like kind of huffy with it, like Patrick Troughton would. And I think that kind of going back again, watching it sort of now later, 30 some odd, 5 some odd years later. Um, I didn't get it when I was like a little kid watching it because I mean I didn't have like the history of it. I mean I really knew the Fourth Doctor because that's who started when they started playing it here in the U.S., let alone here in Cleveland, was with the Fourth Doctor at the end of his run. But I think they started with his, and then I remember, I don't know how old I was, but I remember watching like the first um, series with Fifth Doctor Peter Davison in there. I'm like, I think I remember being kind of like, I understood that it's the same person and he kind of changed, but kind of like what's going on. Like I remember the whole thing where they tried to have him in the zero room, and they're carrying him around in this sort of round thing, TARDIS box coffin-y thing and all that. And um, but I didn't know because I didn't really see the first or second Doctor at the time how much he was kind of acting like Peter Troughton. So I think it's almost like Jodie Whittaker is it just kind of has that kind of sort of Fifth Doctor feel, that kind of young, kind of fresh, optimistic, and really sort of someone that you can probably connect to a little bit more than some of the other ones. Like, I mean, I connected with Peter Capaldi because I dig grumpy old man sort of energy that sometimes has trouble dealing with human interaction. The whole bit of thing with the cards where he's like, all right, I'm very sorry for this. And he's like, no, he's making the effort. Like, I was like, I like that. I kind of good. Fourth Doctor is always going to be my doctor. You're never going to pry that one out of my cold, dead hands as much as I like almost all the other ones, save, I'm sorry, save Sylvester McCoy. Really didn't connect with that one at all. And it took me a while for Colin Baker. It wasn't until later that I had more of an appreciation I could get out of the, wow, his outfit's awful, and appreciate more his performance. But I think hers is, I think Jodie Whittaker's, I mean, it's going to be, it seems like she's genuinely having fun with it and genuinely, again, this is one episode. This could all get blown up later, but just the first episode, it really seems she's into it. It really seems that she not only is having fun, but taking it seriously. And I think they really, I think she was, even if she didn't have any input in the line at all anyway, I think she is still pretty honest about, hey, listen, we're still going to be true to the sort of core of this, the original through line of the Doctor character, that core of who he, she, it, and or they are, while still doing her own thing with it. It's just, to me, some of that own thing reminds me of Fifth Doctor, if he was kind of let himself be more Fifth Doctor as opposed to Fifth Doctor with some second thrown in. Um, I'm also glad they kind of had her still be competent right after a regeneration. Yeah, you're going to have some rebooting problems and stuff like that, and I understand that. And um, yeah, I mean, everyone's kind of had a little bit of a, oh, it takes me a minute to kind of get everything online, and they've kind of had, I think they went overboard with that with Peter Capaldi. And I think the fact that, with David Tennant's, like, he wasn't even in like 90% of the episode. um, Matt Smith, he kind of had the same thing. It was like, all right, I'm twitchy but effective, and oh, okay, I got this going. We're gonna go move forward in a solid way. So I mean, she was pretty instantly effective, pretty instantly recognizable as the Doctor, and kind of had some of that manic energy, kind of had that sort of cheeky thing, was really effective. I think effective technically, as well as being sort of mad and fun interpersonally is good, because it just builds depth where they could, in a lot of things they could easily fall into um almost stereotype gender roles with this, with just having her be, well, she's a woman, so we want to make sure that she's really good at the interpersonal stuff, and some of the sciencey bits maybe fall away to the side. They didn't do that at all. I mean, she's setting up basically machinist labs practically, and in that sort of, I do the best I can with the Earth tech that's here, and still am able to turn it into something more than what Earth could generally seem to produce. Building her own Sonic and everything. It's even kind of got that little almost rapier kind of curve to it, which is neat. Um, so a balance of sort of Earth and alien tech, which is nice. So they showed. I think they tried to show as everything about her being a solid classic Doctor that they could. That sort of manic mad energy, the technically science thing, the really optimistic, I'm going to put myself online for this, but even though you're kind of a terrible alien who's bent on killing a bunch of people, I'm still giving you this chance to not be a terrible alien bent on killing such a people. And she even said it was, sort of a champion for fairness, which which I think is a bit more of a fair assessment than, okay, I'm going to make a stand here because this is protected. I remember I love Matt Smith as the Doctor, and that whole sort of manic, cheeky thing with that. And he did get kind of dark at times too. But I remember I had this one kid in my class with that sort of "I Am the Doctor" theme song that they had. He would kind of sing that as, the Doctor is a badass, and that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. It was like he kind of shouldn't be. I mean, he's going to have that mental toughness, and I guess it might be badass where he's you know to save things and everything like that. He's going to put him, her, it, or they self. I say him at this point because I'm referring mostly to the 11th Doctor because that's where that theme came in. But now for all of them, I'm going to they're going to put themselves in harm's way, do everything they possibly can from talking somebody out of it to building a thing that goes ping or any of this other stuff that they would do. We do everything they can for it, but yeah, there's a couple times 11 seemed to be a little bit too much, but then I've seen people complain about 11 being too aggressive. I'm just like, some of that was already there. I mean, if you can go online and watch, I can't remember which one it is now, but it's a second Doctor serial, and at the very end, like he kind of disarmed this bomb, and instead of just disarming it, he put it back on the ship of these aliens who were bent on, destruction, blowing stuff up, and blew them up. Like he was like, oh nope, I gave it to a better place, and it's sort of like that was the second Doctor. So all the way back then, there's a little bit of a in with it too. Uh, so that they had that sort of certain amount of I don't want to say righteous toughness or anything like that, but that this is a dangerous thing, and I'm going to make sure people are kept safe. And then the one human kind of tried to push the alien away after he kind of got what he wanted, and she even yelled at him. It's like, you didn't have a right to do that. She cleared it up. She took care of people. Didn't have to die. He didn't have to die. Something could have been different. She talked about again that whole thing about change. You can evolve, still keep the core of who you are, but evolve into something else too, and move forward with it. And she was hoping that the alien that was kind of causing the death and problems would do that instead of just going to have to kill him. I'm a little disappointed they had a whole thing with a whole crane arm, and people were kind of about her falling, or she was kind of falling. Could have thrown in a fourth Doctor bit there, as like, I did this before, or I don't have a scarf, or something, because that's how the fourth Doctor regenerated, was falling off that satellite dish after fighting with the Master. So they could have maybe a little bit of a thing with that, but that just could be um, nerd wish on my part with it. Overall, though, the point of this now 14-minute just tirade of rantiness was when I'd never seen anything with Jodie Whittaker as far as I can before, but when they announced that it was a woman, and then I just kind of caught kind of her energy from the pictures, from the little teaser thing that they filmed, and just kind of seeing stuff from the announcement, which I think I do have a little video on it. I want to say it's like 5 or 8 minutes or something like that. Um, but even from that, I was looking forward to it, and this first episode did not disappoint. I was looking forward to Peter Capaldi, and that first episode kind of had some disappointing stuff to it. I mean, I love Vastra and Jenny, but there seemed to be stuff in that, even with Vastra and Jenny, that was sort of like, for some reason, they just made Vastra really sort of sexually objectifying Jenny and Clara. Um, and it just sort of, that one they kind of made a point where how many times can you change and still stay to the core? Kind of, I guess it kind of set the tone into a more of a, you know, who am I at the core kind of thing with it. So maybe taking it in perspective with the 12th Doctor and now setting up the 13th, it was the 12th Doctor had maybe a run of, I don't really know who I am anymore. Maybe it was the 12th Doctor's run was rough. It's like, what, 3, 4 seasons or something like that. There was one season that was like, all right, this is a solid, good season. The sort of bookends of that were kind of, Peter Capaldi's really good. Clara's trying. Jenna Coleman's trying. I'm still going to watch it because I like watching them. Other than that, so maybe in context now with Jodie Whittaker's bit, that whole sort of, I don't know if I'm a good person. I don't really know who I am. I'm trying to figure this out. Maybe that kind of got figured out, and the Doctor can now be more sort of core of who the Doctor is. You have that, fun explorer, a little manic, will have times maybe gets a little maudlin or a little grumpy, will be there. And again, that sort of idea of setting up a certain amount of fairness. I think in Capaldi's last episode, when they saw him meet the first Doctor, when he was saying, okay, this is protecting, the first Doctor's going, hang on a minute. What? Do what? I don't do that. I'm just, what? It was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, you kind of got the idea of over the years, the character sort of evolved into, especially since Eccleston, the return in '05. And it's funny to me when people are just like, I'm a diehard fan from 2009, or I watch this, I'm just like, okay, that's good, cool, but come on. Part of it is it's almost sort of like book snobbery, people for Tolkien or A Song of Ice and Fire or something like that, or Harry Potter. Even if they came to it from the movies and went back and read the books, and they go back to the movies and go, hang on a minute. But I know there's probably some of us who have been watching Doctor Who since, at least the early 80s or before, kind of just sort of like, we maybe got a little bit of a about it to people who've come to it from 2005 or later. Especially if people came to it from 2005 or later, never really went back and investigated any of the old Doctor stuff. They just keep watching from Eccleston on without sort of the other context. Anyway, digressing, which is probably out of 18 minutes what about 14 of this was. But kind of that core again of keeping that evolution, that change that they talked about in terms of, okay, this is going to be, part of this is going to be keeping a bit of fairness, a bit of, justice in things and everything like that. But that idea again of having that explore and kind of having fun and enjoying what's going on and infusing that with maybe a little bit of the manic, maybe a little bit of the grumpy. I think if this one episode was any indication, and I think it is, I think she can handle all that. And I really think that she's a good torch bearer for the character, not only for the sort of zeitgeist of now in terms of media and breaking free of a lot of the sort of things that have just been stuck for decades or more, but also kind of carrying it through later. Doctor Who is one of those cool things where you can do that without it now sort of not really trying. Because you see this, I mean, it's how many times do you see, oh, well, this woman is a strong female character. She's a good role model. She's a strong female character and a good role model because she's basically just acting like a dude, only she's a girl. You know how many times, I mean, I love Arya Stark. It's like cat and dog hair everywhere. I love Arya Stark, but I think one of the reasons that a lot of people love Arya Stark is because she's basically acting like a kick-ass boy, you know, and it throws you off because it's a female doing it. But I think that's one of the reasons why people don't like Sansa Stark, because she's doing this badass stuff, but she's doing it not like a guy would, you know, or if a guy would, they're doing it like Littlefinger or something like that. I don't think Varys gets enough credit in a lot of things too, but definitely Sansa doesn't. You know, and how many times, how many things, movies or TV shows or comic books, you know, women are praised as being strong and badass as long as they're basically acting like a dude. You know, and how many times and how many things do we have? I mean, I'm on Tumblr, I see it all the damn time. You know, we have established characters and they've got to be sort of ethnically, gender, or sexually bent in some way in order to help people feel validated in terms of who they are, which is, and again, I feel like I haven't explained myself right in this before, but there have just been an innumerable amount of stories and characters and pieces of art and music and TV shows and comic books and regular books and movies or any sort of things that have been just allowed to disappear into nothing because it hasn't been the sort of traditional white straight male, you know, sort of leading character and everything like that. And then in order to sort of try and find that power and that validity and that connection with things, people have had to bend those established characters to fit themselves. And I appreciate the creativeness from it because there's some stuff that comes out that's really kind of neat with that. But at the same point in time, it's where are the stories that you wouldn't need to do that for? You know, where are the stories that you can have that connection without having to, without kind of having that same thing with, all right, we have a strong female character because she acts like a dude. Where are the stories where it's like, all right, we can have a hero who's a person of color and maybe LGBTQ plus without it now, okay, well, we have to try and retrofit these other things into making that happen. You know, and I think sometimes people run with it again. You know, I'm I have a little bit of a problem with some fan fictions that just basically make it, well, I like these two characters and how they relate, so that means they got to have sex. You know, everyone just wants, you know, Sherlock and Watson in the Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman show. They can't just be friends. They can't just love each other as friends. They got a bone too. You know, I understand again the idea of people trying to make a connection with things, but where are the original things? And I know that those original things have been squashed and ignored by the sort of status quo for a long time. So what's neat about this with Doctor Who is that you can do that. You can have that connection. It's a nice melding of those things. You can have that now already established history, canon, character, and now play with things like that, like the gender and the ethnicity, and going in and out and doing all this other stuff with it, and still have it be original without having to be squashed because it's something that won't get produced in some way, because a lot of that other art, a lot of other media won't get published because it doesn't have that sort of, you know, baseline that we've been promoting for decades and decades and decades. So this is a way, I mean, it's just sort of cracking things open more, so now we can get that, those other sides, those other perspectives, those other stories. And because things like with this, with Doctor Who are happening, then people who are creating content, or at the very least producing content, in terms of being a producer, not as an artist, but producer as in the person who finds or gives money for it, will say, hey, look, this thing's getting a lot of money. Doctor Who is, the Doctor is now a woman, and people aren't running away. There's a really positive thing from it. Wonder Woman did really well, so okay, then we can do other stuff with that too. You know, we can have these other stories, and these other stories that people have been sitting on or have been lost or ignored for centuries, essentially, can now start having their place and everything like that. So I'm all for more original content, um, and I'm all for having those stories in. And I think that this is a way to show that those stories and those leads can happen without it just being, you put a woman who's just acting like a dude. You know, you have, you know, a person of color who's just acting like a white guy. You know, you have that normalcy of it. You know, you can have this without beating you over the head and making that one thing the only aspect of their personality. As such, my kind of hope is that they don't go down any sort of romantic route for it. To be fair, I didn't really like that whole route with the way they were bringing that around with the Doctor this time around either, since 2005, because that really wasn't a part of the Doctor throughout. You know, I guess you kind of say, well, we kind of got to make it a little bit because it wasn't, so you wanted to do something different, but you kind of just really kind of had it with Rose through a couple generations, regenerations, and then you got it with Martha, fancied him, but he didn't, and then you got the whole thing with Clara again, and that was kind of a, I think that if there's a romancy bit in with Jodie Whittaker's Doctor, they're going to change the story of her legacy in a way that will not be helpful. Because again, you're already kind of up against a certain thing, having a woman take over the sort of crown, but now all of a sudden you have a romancy thing, even though you had it with some of the male ones. All that's going to be remembered is that this is the Doctor who fancied this human or did this, that, even if it's another girl, or it's or another female, or it's a transgender person, it won't matter. I think it will overshadow any of the other good that will happen with showing what can be done with original sort of art and media, without having a white straight guy as the front and poster of it. So yeah, having that without it having to have the romancy thing, and it doesn't really need to be in Doctor Who that much anyway. If the companions have a certain sort of thing or anything, okay, I can understand that. I mean, that even makes sense psychologically. You're in these extreme situations, and here's someone you're kind of with, and you know, you always had that even from the beginning. Um, Ian and Barbara, you always knew that, yeah, okay, they were pretty much a couple even from the very beginning, and all of that. And even Peter Davison as the fifth Doctor was like, yeah, he wanted to make sure that they pointed out that there really wasn't hanky-panky going on, even though there are these women running around with him, and Adric and all this other stuff too. Um, so I think they kind of got to be careful that they don't, in the interest of trying to be modern with their storytelling, and how the past 13 years of the Doctor being back has been more sort of like, well, they've updated it for the way television and storytelling is now. You don't have the 4 to 8 20-minute serial stories. You got like a story an episode, basically 40 minutes. Maybe you have a two-parter. The narrative arc's a little bit different. It's a little harsher, a little bit more heartbreaking in some ways too. So you kind of got to update it. And now we have to have these sort of, just seems we have to have these sort of relationships. The Hobbit did it too. You could have introduced Toriel without her now having to have some sort of romantic thing. And if you know anything about any of the stuff with dwarves and elves and any of the Tolkien lore, it wouldn't have made sense anyway for having a dwarf and an elf be in love in terms of romantic love. And then there are the people who be like, well, Legolas and Gimli. Why can't people just love each other and be really, really good friends with each other without having to have a sexual relationship? You know, same thing with the Doctor, as Lord of the Rings, as all this other stuff. I know J.K. Rowling went back and said that she was kind of disappointed that she didn't have Harry and Hermione hook up. I love the fact that Harry and Hermione were just like best friends. And it makes more sense anyway for Harry to basically marry into the Weasleys, with that, like, given the sort of way that they sort of cushioned him into coming back into his own, and the wizarding world anyway, and how just entwined he kind of was with them. And that made more sense. And it was really cool that Harry and Hermione could be friends without it having to get this other stuff in there too. I like that. So I think there's a certain fine line that they have to be careful with Jodie Whittaker as a Doctor. Try not to get the romancy thing anyway. And really with the Doctor, you don't need that too much anyway. There's so much else going on. Maybe you have, again, some of the companions or side characters, you have that. There's your fix for that. Keep the Doctor, and cool. We didn't have it for 20-something years beforehand, 26 years beforehand. We can be cool with having gotten that out of our system with Rose and Clara now. All right? Leave it be. Let Jodie Whittaker be the awesome Doctor that Jodie Whittaker is turning out to be, without having to screw up her legacy by, trying to basically just jerk off Tumblr and internet trolls who can't separate, affection and everything from just boning. So yeah, that's probably 3 times longer than I meant to go on. So again, The Woman Who Fell to Earth, Jodie Whittaker's first outing as the Doctor, pretty darn good. Wasn't a world-beating episode. The story was like, holy crap, this is blowing my mind, or anything along those lines. I don't want to say they tread carefully with it, but maybe they tread carefully with it a little bit. But that's okay, because they still allowed her to be her. They allowed her to be cool and interesting and manic and caring and clever and spontaneous, as well as technical and everything like that too. So there is a bit of a cliffhanger, I guess you could say. Space Hanger is a little bit more like it at the end of it. And there was no theme. I don't know what the new theme's going to be. I don't know if they released it already. It's on YouTube and you can look it up. I don't know. I didn't look it up. I just kind of wanted to save everything to be fresh and new. But there wasn't a theme. or an intro thing. So we'll see. I'm assuming there's going to be, because that's just pretty solid standard sort of stuff. Um, it would be nice if they did it without the face thing. I know that was always something that's been done for, well, except I don't think any of Hartnell's run had the face thing on that, but that's something we can do without. That's fine if they just don't do that. For some reason, I just don't like it. So I'm imagining there's going to be an updated theme. I'm imagining there's going to be an updated intro, considering they updated the font for Doctor Who. I just They just didn't have it. Maybe they will on the extended one they're going to air later. I don't know, but the first run thing they just sort of jumped right into it. So the companions seem okay. I mean, okay. But to be warned, there is someone cool who's going to die. It sucks, and it was sad. You could probably see something like that coming, even if you hadn't seen who the companions were going to be beforehand in like the teaser posters or the trailers or anything else like that. You could probably see where this was going, which is unfortunate because she was cool. I'm really just looking at Shin to see if he's got anything else to say. I respect the way his whole body sort of moves when he snores. It's like he snores and it kind of contracts and he expands again. He kind of his whole body's committed to it, and I respect that. So anyway, that's it for me on this. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, share, all that other good YouTubey stuff, and keep watching Doctor Who. It was awesome. Looking forward to Jodie Whittaker. I wouldn't say no so far. I mean, unless it really twists and Chris Chimney, unless he really starts just sucking. It'd be kind of neat to have a doctor for more than 3 years. I mean, I think technically David Tennant or whatever was more than that, but it was really only 3 years. It was just stuff got kind of pushed around on in terms of time, but 3 seasons or 3 seasons plus. I wouldn't say no to Tom Baker still being technically the longest running doctor. Wouldn't say no to that. But again, that's my own little doctor bias. I was hoping for a longer time with Peter Capaldi, especially since I know what an ultimate fanboy he is of the Doctor, and I did enjoy him as the Doctor anyway, and I think having him outside of Stephen Moffatness would have been fun. But so maybe 4 or 5 seasons if she wants to, and it stays fresh and she has fun with it and isn't apparently too exhausted by it, because this does seem like it would be exhausting. I wanted more Matt Smith too, so yeah. So looking forward to it. Good job. Keep it up.